The cicadas are screaming again. The sun beats down on the dry earth, baking clay rooftops until they shimmer. You are 13, and today is the day you learn to run barefoot over thorns, without flinching. Not because you want to, but because pain is your inheritance. Your mother's voice once sang lullabies by the hearth. Now it commands you like a general. Spartan women must be stronger than Spartan men, she says, as if your girlhood were a weakness to be burned away. You do not cry. Not anymore. Not since they took your brother to the agoge and braided your hair like a warrior. This is Sparta, but not the Sparta you think you know. If this story leaves an ache in your chest or fire in your bones, tell me, could you have survived girlhood in a world that worships strength above all else? Subscribe, and walk again through forgotten lives. The bells toll as the sky turns ochre, not for celebration, but for a pyre burning somewhere down the slope. Smoke curls through the olive trees like the last breath of a fallen god, and in a quiet room of clay and packed earth, you enter the world, not with a cry, but with a soft, wet gasp. There is no incense, no priest, no offerings to Hera. Only a woman bent at the hips, gripping a splintered doorframe with one hand, her sweat falling like tears onto the straw below. Her scream is short, controlled. Sparta. The midwife does not speak. Her hands are stained with blood and old tobacco, steady as she brings you from one world into the next. You are born in silence, and it clings to your skin like afterbirth. A girl, the room stills. The midwife blinks once. Your mother does not. For the briefest of moments, her face folds, not in grief, but in calculation. Then she gathers you with rough hands, wraps you in linen already yellowed from many washings, and holds you to her chest. Outside, the bells toll again. Another man dead, another boy to be trained, another cradle left waiting. The gods wanted a son. Sparta wanted a soldier. But Sparta has you. If this story lingers in your chest, like the sting of cold wind, share it, and ask yourself, could you have survived the weight of being born in a world that didn't want you? Tell me in the comments, what would you carry forward if the world expected nothing from you? The walls of your home are warm in summer, sweating in winter, and always humming faintly with the scrape of wind against the thatch roof. Your first sounds are not lullabies, but the low whistle of fire through a smoke hole, and the footfalls of soldiers on morning patrol. There are no dolls in your cradle, only your mother's shadow. She does not sing to you. Her voice has grown too used to commands, too tempered by loss. But she watches you learn the sound of her breath, the rhythm of her movements, the weight of her presence, as it moves through a house with little softness. She bathes you in water drawn before sunrise, still cold from the mountain stream. She does not warm it, not once. The first time you fall ill, she does not panic. She places your fevered body beside the fire, lays a hand upon your chest, and waits, life or death. These are the first choices a Spartan girl must make, and you choose life, though no one asks you. You wake with cracked lips and shivering limbs, and her eyes are already turned toward the doorway. She has bread to bake. You survive in the margin. Your father speaks little. He is away more than he is present, his sandals leaving dust, but never roots. When he returns, he eyes you with the quiet disappointment of a man measuring seed that did not sprout. You do not resent him. You understand. You are not what he hoped for, but you will become something he does not expect. At 3 years old, you watch a procession pass by the courtyard wall, soldiers in crimson cloaks, their armor catching sunlight like polished bone. Behind them walks a line of mothers, each with hands clasped before her, lips tight, eyes dry, no weeping. Spartan women do not mourn, they recite, like prayer. He died well. The line passes, and one of the mothers glances at you, just once. You remember her face forever. It holds something ancient, not sorrow, not pride, something in between, a silence older than Sparta itself. You begin to crawl outside the doorframe, drawn by dust motes and bees. The world beyond smells of sun-baked clay and olive oil, of goat droppings and bruised thyme underfoot. Your hands turn brown from dirt, your fingernails crust with earth. You are growing into the soil, like all Spartan girls, rooted, wind-bent, unbreakable. The first time you bleed, your mother sees it without surprise. She has already carved your fate in her mind. She sits you down on a flat stone in the yard. She does not say congratulations. She does not mention womanhood. Instead, she says, pain will come off, but if it breaks you, Sparta will not mourn you. Then she rises, wipes her hands on her apron, and returns to stirring lentils. You sit there long after she leaves, your legs bare, the blood drying on your thigh like rust on a blade. You learn the names of herbs not for flavor, but for healing. You crush mint between your teeth when your stomach turns. You rub olive paste into cuts. You chew willow bark when the fever returns. There is no physician, only knowledge passed from the mouths of bone wives and toothless aunts who speak of things men never hear. You listen closely. You are building your own armor. One day, a woman from down the road gives birth to twins, both girls. Her husband leaves that night. Your mother says nothing, but her jaw tightens. Later, when she thinks you are asleep, you hear her whisper to the fire, "Let mine outlast them all." You understand then, not love, not affection, but expectation. You are not her joy, you are her wage. And so you begin to harden. You race the neighbor boys, let your knees scrape raw. You learn to braid your hair tightly, so it does not whip your face in the wind. You stop crying when your thumb splits open from the weaving spindle. Each injury is a lesson, each scar, a verse in the long poem of survival. When you turn 6, your father comes home with a new shield, bronze-edged, sun-struck, etched with a Gorgon's face. He kneels before your brother, now 8, and places the shield into his small hands. "You will carry it until you die," he says. Then, without looking at you, he rises and walks away. Your brother glows like coals in a brazier. That night, you press your palm into the soil and whisper, "I will carry something heavier." And you will. The frost comes, not as snow, but as silence, a hardening of the air, a bite in the lungs when you breathe too deeply. The ground cracks beneath bare feet, and still, you are made to run. Each morning before the sun crowns the ridges, your mother wakes you with a sharp word and a splash of cold water across your neck. No tenderness, no pause. You rise, shivering, your linen tunic already stiff from the night's chill, and step into the yard where the stones wait like teeth. You run, not for sport, not for joy. You run because your mother says your body must not betray you. Your heels split, your arches bleed. The gravel bites your soles until they callous, and even then the pain remains. She watches from the doorway with arms crossed, her shadow long against the wall. If you stumble, she says nothing. If you cry, she turns away. A weak woman gives birth to cowards, she reminds you when you falter. And so you do not falter again. Your brothers leave for the agoge before the end of spring. They are still soft-faced, still laughing too loud. One carries a slingshot, the other a scrap of wool he clutches when he thinks no one sees. You watch them disappear into a world of drills and discipline, their sandals kicking dust into the air. They do not look back. They are boys, but they must become wolves. You are not envious. Your training is quieter, but it cuts deeper. No instructor shouts commands. No shield is handed to you. Instead, your mother becomes your overseer, your aunt your sparring partner, and the very earth beneath your feet your relentless taskmaster. You are taught to move with purpose, to balance jars of water on your head without spilling a drop. You squat beside the hearth until your thighs burn. You grind grain for hours, your hands blistering on the stone. These are not games, they are not chores, they are your forge. When you misstep, your punishment is not lashes but silence. Disappointment hangs heavier than any whip. One night, after your ankle twists on a run, you limp home with blood crusting your calf. Your mother binds it with cloth but says nothing. That hurts more. You lie awake listening to the soft hiss of firewood, wondering if Spartiate men felt this same hunger, the need to be seen, not just endured. You keep your hair short. It is easier for chores and it doesn't catch when you're climbing trees to gather olives or weaving traps for hares. Your skin darkens under the sun. Your arms thicken. Other girls begin to look at you differently, not with jealousy, but with caution. You are not the fastest or the tallest, but you are relentless. You endure when your cousin sobs over a broken comb. You do not offer comfort. You offer her your own, carved from olive wood, worn smooth by your grip. "Don't cry," you say. "Use this instead." She nods. Nothing more is said. In the evenings, you sit with your mother and the other women. They teach you to spin wool, not for decoration, but for necessity. Your fingers must learn to twist, to shape, to hold. Each thread you spin is one less reason to depend on others. Autokeia, self-sufficiency, is the root of your worth. Your hands grow deft, strong. The skin along your palms thickens until you no longer flinch at the heat of iron pots or the prickle of raw flax. You become accustomed to pain, not because it leaves you, but because you learn to carry it like a pouch at your belt. Always there, but never empty. Once in the market, you see a Helota girl your age struggling with a bundle of wood. She stumbles. A man laughs. You do not. You stare until he stops. She does not thank you, but her eyes meet yours, and something unspoken is passed between you. You will think of that look years later, when you feel powerless, and remember that strength is not always loud. On the day you first bleed from your knuckles, not your womb, your mother smiles. You've split them while pounding barley, the pestle heavier than your wrist. Blood streaks the grain like crimson threads through linen. She does not tend the wound. Instead, she lifts your chin. Now you are becoming useful, she says. The seasons turn, and your training deepens. You learn how to carry jars across uneven ground without spilling, how to mend tunics with bone needles, how to press herbs into paste for aching joints. These are not domestic tasks, they are survival tactics. Your home is no cradle, it is a war camp with softer edges. One night, thunder rolls in the hills. Your brothers return briefly, taller now, changed. They speak little, their eyes flickering like candlelight. One of them shows you the welt on his back, long and twisted. They told me not to cry, he says. You do not ask if he did, you only place your hand over it, and he lets you. Later, alone by the fire, your mother tells you that tears are only useful if they salt the ground beneath your feet. You nod, though part of you still remembers the softness of cloth pressed to a scraped knee, the sweetness of honey on a fevered tongue. You miss it. You bury it. By 12, your legs are lean cords of strength. You can carry water uphill without stopping, lift sacks of grain with barely a grunt. The boys look at you now with a strange mixture of curiosity and caution. You are not delicate. You are not meek. You are becoming Sparta. And though no one tells you outright, you begin to understand. Your training is not for battle, but for bearing those who will march into it. You are being shaped into the furnace from which soldiers are cast. Your womb, your will, your silence, all are being tested. And still, you endure. The river sings with secrets. It runs slow in winter, faster in spring. Its waters thick with melt and stories that don't reach the ears of men. You are 13 when you begin walking to it alone, a basket in one hand, linen in the other, not because you enjoy the task, but because it grants you something rare in Sparta: distance, space, breath. The air near the river is different, damp, heavy with wild mint, silty mud, and rotting reeds. Frogs chirr in the rushes. Dragonflies skim the surface like dancers with glass wings. Here the land doesn't demand strength, only stillness. And yet even now, strength finds you. They're already there, as they always are. The old ones. The bone wives. Women whose skin is leathered by decades of sun, whose teeth are mostly gone, but whose hands move with purpose and precision. They do not look up when you arrive. One of them is scrubbing a long strip of crimson streaked cloth against a flat stone. Another is sifting through a bundle of herbs with calloused fingers. You've seen them before, these women who no longer bear children, no longer bear husbands. Some say they are witches, others call them wise. You have no name for them yet, only questions. You kneel beside them. No one tells you to, you simply do. The river laps at the edge of your hem. Cold, relentless. You dip the cloth into the water and begin to scrub, mimicking their rhythm. The stone beneath your hands is slick, etched with years of labor. Blood lifts from the fabric slowly, staining the water, rose dark. The eldest bone wife, she has no name that anyone speaks, watches you. Her eyes are the color of smoke. Finally, she says, "You don't flinch." You do not respond. You will. In time. Another woman chuckles, a low, toothless cackle. They all flinch. Just once, then never again. They speak in riddles, but you understand what they mean. This is not about scrubbing linens. It's about knowing what the stains are. Birth, blood, death. The messy, sacred, brutal rhythms of being a woman in a place that only glorifies men. You learn quickly which herbs to press into a wound, which roots to avoid during pregnancy, how to staunch bleeding with spider silk, how to catch a goat's placenta before it hits the dirt, how to stitch flesh with a needle made from bird bone. These are not things taught in the square or sung in the chorus. These are lessons passed from mouth to ear like smuggled prayers. You see things you cannot unsee. A girl, 15, her face pale as milk, trembling as they press hot cloths to her belly after a miscarriage. A woman, much older, who drags herself to the river with her skirts soaked in blood, smiling, still through cracked lips because she is alive, just alive. No one cries. The bone wives do not offer comfort, only salt and boiled roots. And the truth. And the truth is this: the river always runs red in spring. One day, while twisting a knot of cloth, you ask without meaning to, "Is it from battle?" The oldest bone wife, the one with smoke eyes, looks at you for a long time. Then she bares her gums and laughs. "It's always from the women." You do not know what to say. The words sit in your throat like pebbles. That night, you dream of the river. It is wider than you remember, wilder. It overflows its banks and rushes into the fields, swallowing grain, cradles, sandals left by the door. It carries voices, the voices of women you've seen, and some you haven't. A girl who bled too early, a mother who bled too late, a grandmother whose back never straightened again after her 5th child. They do not scream, they whisper, and their whispers are louder than any man's shout. You wake with your tunic damp, your hands still curled as if wringing water. The dawn is silent. Your mother is already at the hearth, grinding lentils. You do not speak of the dream, but when you return to the river, your hands are steadier. You scrub deeper, you watch closer. The bone wives begin to nod when you approach. A small, slow recognition. They tell you stories, sometimes in fragments. One says she bore 6 children, only one lived. Another says she used to dance high leaps, sharp turns, until her knees broke beneath her. One points to a jagged scar across her belly and calls it her twin flame. You do not ask what it means. You begin to understand. Every woman here is marked, not with paint, not with armor, but with survival. Each wrinkle, each line, each silence carries a story no bard will ever sing. You ask one of them, once, why they keep coming back to the river. To remind the water, she says, that we are still here. You nod, you understand. The world inside Sparta's walls is built of stone. Temples, statues, training fields. But the world of women is built of water, and blood, and time, and you are learning to live in both. When the younger girls ask why you disappear so often, you tell them you are gathering mint. They do not question you. But one day, you will take one of them with you, and she will flinch. Just once. And then never again. The dust rises before the music does. It hangs in the dry morning air, fine, golden, full of forgotten footsteps. The chorus gathers in the temple square, voices low, feet bare, eyes alert. You are among them now. A girl nearing womanhood. Your hair has grown long again, braided tightly down your spine. You wear the rough woven chiton of a choral singer, its hem stained with old earth and new sweat. Around you other girls stand like reeds in the wind, swaying gently, yet unbroken. When the lyre strings begin to hum, you feel it in your chest first, that small flutter like wings behind your ribs. Then comes the drumbeat, steady, measured, your cue. You open your mouth, and song pours from you like smoke from a flame. It is not a song of love, not here, not in Sparta. The words are sharp-edged, forged in rhythm, honed by tradition. They speak of glory, of shields not abandoned, of sons who die smiling with their spears still upright. You know every syllable by heart. You were taught them before you could fully pronounce your own name. The melodies are simple, haunting, made to be remembered in war camps and funeral processions. The elders say these songs shape the city, that a Spartan child can march before they speak, can sing before they cry. But what you notice more than the sound is the silence beneath it. There is something missing, something the songs never say. They do not sing of women who die in childbirth. their screams swallowed by mud walls. They do not sing of daughters who vanish in the night, promised to men they've never seen. They do not sing of the girl who broke her ankle and was never seen again, or the mother who threw herself into the Eurotas because her fourth son never came home. Those stories live in the cracks, between the verses, in the places where the dust settles thickest. You first learn this in secret, when you overhear your grandmother humming to herself. Not one of the usual songs. No, hers is different, softer, slower, words like water, not fire. You crouch by the doorway, listening. Her voice trembles, but does not break. She sings of a girl taken in a raid, never returned. Of a mother who waited each dusk with a fig in her palm, uneaten, until the flies found her eyes. You ask her who the songs are for. For the wind, she says. It carries what the stone cannot. You begin to notice the wind after that. How it moves through the sycamores with more purpose than any soldier. How it twists through alleyways and across empty training yards, gathering the whispers no one dares speak aloud. Sometimes you think you hear a name on it, a lost one, a forbidden one. During festival rehearsals, your foot slips on the temple floor. You fall hard. Your wrist bends. There is no cry. You know better. Pain must remain inside, like breath held underwater. One of the older girls helps you up. Her hand is firm, her eyes distant. Later she teaches you to bind your wrist with linen soaked in vinegar and thyme. Don't let it show, she says. She has the voice of a crow, harsh and beautiful. You become friends. At night, when the others sleep, she tells you stories, not of gods or battles, but of women. Women who left, women who stayed, women who vanished. She says there's a house beyond the hills, where old singers go, their mouths still full of words they never dared sing. You don't know if she believes it, but she says the silence in Sparta is heavier than armor. You begin collecting songs of your own, scraps overheard, fragments passed down like smuggled relics. You hum them while you grind grain, while you wash blood from cloth, while you walk the perimeter of your yard as dusk settles like ash. One day, your mother hears you. She does not scold, but her face turns stone-like, unreadable. You'll sing what is asked of you, she says, and nothing more. But at night, beneath your breath, you still sing. You sing of the cousin who bled to death at 15, her body too small, her silence too big. You sing of the neighbor girl taken at 12 to marry a man twice her age. You sing of the girl whose name was never spoken again after she broke a jar on temple steps. And always, you sing for your grandmother, her voice now fading, her breath shorter, her hands always reaching towards something that isn't there. The wind answers you, sometimes, when it rushes through the courtyard and lifts the dust into your eyes, when it howls against the shutters and makes you sit up in the dark, heart thudding like the drumbeat in the square. You begin to think of it as a choir of all the voices that could not survive this place. The next time you sing in public, you hold your chin higher, your feet plant deeper, the chorus begins, and your voice blends, but not completely. Somewhere beneath the notes, there is your own rhythm, a secret current, a whispered defiance. No one notices, but you feel it, the small fire that does not need tending. You are learning to sing not just for Sparta, but in spite of it. You are 14 when they begin to look at you differently. Not the boys. They are mostly gone now, swallowed by the agoge, and spat out with hardened jaws and hollowed eyes. No, it is the women who see you. Their glances no longer scan your posture for flaws, your hands for clumsiness, but your hips, your gait, your quiet. You are not praised, not warned, only watched, and that in Sparta is all the signal you need. It begins with the oil, thick, pungent, pressed from black olives still wet with morning. Your mother rubs it into your skin until it shines like bronze. Not gently, not as care, but as preparation. The way one might polish a shield or wet a blade. She scrapes dead skin from your elbows, combs burrs from your hair, binds your breasts in linen. This, she says, is what strong men notice. You are not sure if it's a compliment or a command. Your aunts arrive the next day. 4 of them, all with the same sunburnt skin and flint-boned humor. They circle you like wolves, poking, prodding, lifting your arms, turning your face into the light. One of them says your jaw is too sharp. Another says sharpness keeps men honest. You say nothing. You are a vessel being inspected, a pitcher meant to carry future sons. That night you eat little. Your stomach is tight with salt and unspoken thoughts. Your mother tells you to sleep early. You'll be summoned before the elders in the morning. Summoned, she says, as if you've done something wrong. In truth, you know it is not punishment, but neither is it mercy. At dawn, you walk barefoot to the assembly hall. Your tunic is clean, your hair tied back in a warrior's knot. The path is lined with pebbles. Each one bites into your feet. You do not wince. You have trained too long for that. Inside, the hall smells of wax and sweat and old cedar. The elders do not look at you. They look through you. You stand tall anyway, arms at your sides, chin level. You have no father to speak for you. He is on campaign. Your mother waits outside, silent. You are alone. One of the elders, a woman with a voice like crushed stones, steps forward. She touches your collarbone. Strong, she says. Then, not beautiful. You exhale. You had feared the opposite. Another woman brings out the oils again. They smear them across your shoulders, your thighs, your stomach. Not for softness, but for strength. They mark you like marble to be sculpted. You are not praised. You are not condemned. You are measured and found serviceable. Later in the courtyard, your mother tightens your sandals and tells you not to speak unless spoken to. Marriage is not a promise here, she says. You are 14 when they begin to look at you differently. Not the boys. They are already shadows in the distance, their voices thinned by the wind, their laughter forgotten in the barracks of the Agauge. It is the women now who see you, though not with affection. Their eyes sweep your figure like merchants, inspecting pottery for cracks, for promise, for function. They weigh your silence. They watch how you walk. You are not being judged. You are being prepared. It begins in the courtyard, beneath the gnarled fig tree that has watched your family grow, shrink, fracture. Your mother calls you out into the sun. You stand with your arms bare, your hair tied in the tight braid of unmarried girls. She brings out the oil, thick, dark, the smell sharp with crushed olive pits and days spent under sunstones. She dips her fingers into it and begins rubbing it across your shoulders, your collarbones, your thighs. Not gently, not lovingly. She oils you the way a warrior oils a blade, for endurance, not beauty. Your skin prickles with goose flesh, though the morning is already warm. The oil sinks into your pores, into your breath. You are being readied, but not for a celebration, not for a feast, or a festival. This is not about joy, it is about strength. They will see your shape, your mother says, her fingers pressing into your ribs. But they must also see your fire. Do not tremble, you nod. You do not ask who they are. By midday, the other women arrive. Aunts, neighbors, distant cousins with lined faces and measuring eyes. They circle you like silent hawks, muttering to one another, pinching your arms, checking your calves, lifting the hem of your tunic to examine how your knees bear weight. They do not speak to you directly. They speak about you, over you, through you. She runs well, one asks. Like a hare, your mother replies. She eats enough? More than her brothers did. They nod, grim approval. Then one of them, the oldest, the one with hands like driftwood, steps forward and places her fingers under your chin. She will do, she says. No one smiles. That night, your mother leaves a folded tunic at the end of your sleeping mat. It is deeper red than the others, dyed with crushed madder root. Not the crimson of warriors, but the red of bloodlines, of wombs, of transition. You do not touch it until morning. You lie awake staring at it, wondering what shape your life will take once you put it on. Before dawn, you are summoned to the elders' hall. You go alone. Your mother does not walk beside you. This is a path walked in silence, lit only by the pink bruises of morning. You pass olive trees bowed with fruit. A pair of goats, the baker's boy, still sweeping ash from the oven. He does not look at you. That absence of gaze, too, is tradition. The hall smells of cedarwood and dust. Inside, the light is thin and gold, filtering through slats in the wall like blades. There are 3 women and 1 older man, none of whom have names you know. Their eyes are quiet, their mouths unsmiling. You stand before them, hands at your sides, feet planted. They ask you no questions. Instead, they observe. One of the women steps forward and runs her hand along your spine, tracing your shoulder blades, your hips. You do not flinch. Another examines your wrists, your hands, your fingernails. You hear them whisper, strong hips, good calves. Silent. The old man, his voice dry as parchment, finally speaks. She will be matched. You feel the words land, but not settle, like stones thrown into shallow water. On your walk home, the sun crests fully over the hills. Its light is warm, but you feel cold. Your mother does not ask what they said. She only opens the door and returns to stirring the lentils. The match has been made. But who or when or how? None of that is spoken. Marriage in Sparta is not an affair of courtship. It is a ritual, a transaction, a sacrifice laid upon the altar of strength and survival. That evening, the neighbors bring over cheese and dried dates. They do not congratulate you. They nod once. One of them, a wide-shouldered woman with a thick scar across her brow, grips your hand before leaving. Don't tremble, she says, even in the dark. You want to ask what that means, but you do not. Instead, you eat quietly. You clean your plate. You press the hem of the red tunic to your lips and close your eyes. In the darkness of your sleeping mat, you imagine the face of your future husband. Will he be kind? Will he be cruel? Will he even You do not know, and you will not ask, because this is Sparta, and this is the path of every daughter who survives long enough to be measured. There is no procession, no veil, no feast, no chorus of girls singing in the dusk, no lyre, no incense, no garlands of time braided into your hair. There is only darkness, and breath, and the sound of a knife shearing through your braid. You sit still while they cut it, your mother holding the strands as they fall, her mouth pressed into a line that refuses to shape any word. The hair tumbles onto the ground in a soft heap, the color of burnished chestnut in the firelight. You feel bare now, not because you are exposed, but because something is being unmade. You have carried that braid since childhood. Each twist remembered festivals, illnesses, games played beside the river. Now it is gone. Short hair for new beginnings, one of the elder women says. Her voice is flat, like iron on cold stone, like the boy. You do not speak. You only nod. They rub oil into your scalp. Not gently. Every stroke feels like the flattening of who you were. The linen tunic you wear is unadorned, knotted loosely at one shoulder, exposing your collarbone to the cool air. Your feet are bare, your wrists unadorned. Your scent is rosemary and wood smoke. You have no idea what time it is. The ceremony began hours ago, or perhaps moments. In Sparta, weddings are not events, they are transitions, swift, shadowed, sharp as flint. There is no altar, no priest, no recitation of vows. There is only the abduction ritual, a tradition passed down for generations. You are not stolen in violence, but with formality. It is symbolic, and yet the symbolism still makes your skin tighten. A man enters the room. You see only his outline. Broad-shouldered, silent. He does not speak. He does not kneel. He does not smile. He lifts you with both arms, as if carrying a prize, and walks into the night. You do not cry out. You are not afraid. Not exactly. You are numb, like the surface of a river right before it freezes, still moving beneath, but masked in stillness. The night is quiet. The moon is a pale shard behind wisps of cloud. He carries you through the fields, past low stone walls, past sleeping goats and shuttered homes. The air smells of grass, hearth smoke, and distant iron. You know these paths, you've walked them barefoot for years, but now they seem unfamiliar, like dreams remembered at dawn, blurred at the edges, untouchable. When he places you down, it is in a room that is colder than you expected. There is a low fire in the hearth, a woven mat on the floor, a pitcher of water, no bed, no ceremony, just the stillness of two people breathing in a room, meant to make strangers into bloodline. He says nothing, neither do you. His touch is not cruel, but it is not kind. It is duty. This, too, is a form of training. Afterward, he leaves. Before the coals have dimmed, you lie alone, your braid still in your hand, the strands already limp and cooling. You stare at the ceiling and count your breath. 4 in, 4 out, as you were taught. When your limbs shake, you do not stop. You breathe until they quiet. You sleep without dream. In the morning, you are expected to rise early. The fire is out. The jug is still full. You dress yourself. Your knees ache. There is blood on the mat, and you fold the linen over it neatly. You walk back to your mother's house, before the sun crests the hills. No one greets you. Your mother sets bread on the table and a fig beside it. Her face does not change when she sees you. She pours you water. You sit. You eat. You do not speak. Later she lays a new tunic across your lap, dyed deeper, richer, the color of rust and crushed berries. You are a wife now. You are expected to be strong. No celebration marks this transformation. No songs, no visitors. The neighbors know, of course. They always do, but they do not come. Spartan weddings are private, shadow-bound. You've heard stories of women not seeing their husbands by daylight for months. Children conceived before a man's face is ever fully remembered. You believe it now. In the days that follow, he does not return, but you feel him in the silence. He has entered your life like the wind enters a house at night, unseen, but undeniable. You begin to shift in response. You clean more carefully. You eat less. You move with a different rhythm. Not slower, just quieter. Sometimes in the stillness of twilight, you run your fingers through the short hair at the nape of your neck. You do not regret it, but you miss it. You miss who you were before the knife fell. You miss the girl who sang by the river, who danced alone at dusk. You miss her laugh, unguarded, untested, unsworn. You begin to write her a song, but only in your head. No parchment, no ink, just words repeated softly to yourself while folding linen, or grinding grain, or standing at the threshold of your new home. You are not a bride. You are not a lover. You are the beginning of a bloodline. The nausea comes quietly at first, not like an illness, but like a shadow creeping over your shoulder. You wake one morning with a sour taste on your tongue, the kind that no honeyed fig can chase away. You bend over a basin and heave until your ribs ache. Your mother, from the doorway, does not ask what's wrong. She sees the way you grip the lintel, the pale sheen across your brow, and knows. She sets a bowl of barley porridge beside your cot and walks away. The silence is her answer. You are with child. You do not celebrate. You do not cry. You sit with your knees drawn to your chest, watching a spider thread silk across the rafters. The world feels different now, thicker, slower. You feel yourself becoming something more and less than what you were. The women in your courtyard begin to whisper your name in a different tone. Not as a girl, but as a vessel. You are no longer watched. You are expected. Your belly begins to swell before the winter solstice. You wear looser tunics, not out of vanity but necessity. Your skin itches with the stretch. You rub olive oil into your thighs and belly at dusk when the house is cool and your muscles ache. The scent is strong, almost bitter, but it comforts you. Your mother gives you the oil without a word. She does not sing over your stomach. No stories are told to the unborn. Sparta does not coddle what has not yet proven its strength. You speak to the child anyway, in the quiet moments when the fire has dimmed and the moon hangs low, and your hands rest gently on the rising curve of your abdomen. You do not speak of glory. You speak of figs, of rivers, of soft things. You do not know if your child is a boy, but you pray it is. Not because you do not want a daughter, but because a daughter will suffer more. Your husband visits only once, a brief encounter in the night. His face barely visible in the flickering torchlight. He asks if the birth is near. You nod. He nods back. Then he leaves again. You have no hatred for him, only distance. The first pain comes before the frost breaks. It is sharp and sudden, like a snapped branch. You drop the spindle in your lap and breathe through your teeth. Your mother sees the shift in your eyes. She sends the neighbor girl to fetch the bone wives. They arrive quickly. The old one with smoke-colored eyes nods once, lays out cloths and herbs, and begins the ritual of breath and pressure. You lie on the floor near the hearth, knees drawn, fists clenched in your tunic. The fire crackles. Your body breaks open. The pain is not sharp. It is deep, like being hollowed from the inside by hands older than the gods. The room narrows to the heat of the fire and the cold press of wet linen on your brow. The bone wife whispers instructions in your ear, though you barely hear them. You scream once, only once, and then the child arrives, slick, small, silent. For one terrible second, the room stills. Then the cry comes. Shrill, soft, uncertain. A boy. The bone wife swaddles him and hands him to you. He is warm and wet and real. You cradle him with hands that do not tremble. He does not cry again. He opens his eyes and stares at you. Not blankly, not lovingly, just observantly. You see yourself in that gaze, and something else. Your mother steps forward and takes him. He is weighed, measured, judged. The elder women nod. He will live. You lie back against the cool clay floor and close your eyes. You have passed the unspoken test. The days that follow blur together. Your breasts swell with milk. Your back aches. The mat beneath your sleeping body feels harder now, less forgiving. You bleed still, slow rivers of red that mark you as both open and strong. You are not allowed to rest long. Within a week, you return to grinding grain, your son swaddled beside the hearth. The child does not fuss. He is calm, alert. You name him in your mind, but you do not speak the name aloud. Not yet. Not until he earns it. Others come to see him, women mostly. They do not coo. They do not touch. One nods and says, "He has your eyes." Another, "He'll be tall." You hold him through the night, even when your arms ache. You sing the river songs, the secret ones, into his tiny ear. You do not know if he understands, but you sing anyway. You have given life in a city that worships death, and for a moment, just a moment, you feel something like hope. The second child does not come into the world crying. There is no scream, no protest, only a wet, thick silence, like honey poured into a bowl too shallow to hold it. The bone wife catches the baby with hands steadied by age and sorrow, but her face does not soften. Her eyes meet yours, and in that instant, you understand. The world has already ended once before. This is only its echo. Your child, your daughter, is limp in the midwife's arms. Her skin is dusky, her lips too still. The umbilical cord lies slack, like a broken thread in an unfinished tapestry. You reach out instinctively, fingers trembling, but the woman does not place her in your arms. Instead, she wraps the small body in linen without a word. Your mother is there. She says nothing. She places a hand on your shoulder, heavy and warm, and then removes it just as quickly. She was not meant, someone murmurs. A voice without ownership. It happened. They burn the body that night, quietly, with only 2 witnesses. No one offers a eulogy. No one speaks her name. She was never given one. You do not weep, not aloud, but your mouth tastes of ash for weeks. Your husband has not returned from the northern campaign. You do not know if he even knew of the second pregnancy. You wonder, sometimes, if he will ever come back. But as the winter lengthens, the messages grow fewer. The soldiers who do return do not speak of him. Eventually you stop waiting. When the knock comes at the door, short, firm, final, you know before it is said. The messenger does not remove his helmet. He does not enter the home. He simply nods once and says, "He died well." That is all. 3 words. No body, no shield, no farewell. You close the door with hands that do not shake. Your mother prepares a small dish of barley and pours a libation of wine into the dirt. She does not wear black. Neither do you. Spartan widows do not mourn in public. They do not cut their hair, or tear their tunics, or fall upon the ground. They recite the creed. He died well. But in the quiet hours, when the wind presses against the shutters and your son breathes softly beside the embers, you feel the hollow grow inside your chest. Not a sharp emptiness, but a vast one, like the space between stars. You place your hand over your wound, and remember the girl who didn't scream, the man who didn't return. You have given both to Sparta, and Sparta has offered you silence in return. You begin to walk. Not aimlessly, just. He is 5 now, curious, sharp. Where is father? Where is my sister? You pause, then say, "She returned to the gods." He accepts this, for now. But his eyes linger on the firelight longer than before, and yours linger on him. You see your husband in the curve of his cheek, in the way he holds a reed between his teeth when he's thinking. You hear the echo of your daughter in the pauses between his questions, in the absence she left behind. One evening, your mother places a hand on your arm. "You should remarry," she says. You stare at her. The words feel foreign, hollowed out. "Not yet," you reply. She nods. Nothing more is said. In the mornings you return to work. You mend cloaks for the younger boys. You knead dough until your wrists ache. You train your son to run, to climb, to watch. You do not coddle him, but you do not withhold warmth either. You find yourself pressing your lips to his forehead when he sleeps. Not often, just enough. The neighbors begin to call you strong. You are not sure if it is meant as comfort or expectation, but you wear the word like a cloak anyway. One day, as you walk the edge of the training field, you see a group of boys sparring, wooden spears, dirt-smeared faces. You recognize none of them, but their laughter startles you. It is sharp and joyous, unburdened. It cuts through the air like a hymn. You turn away. Your son will join them soon, and you will let him, because that is what is required. But at night you gather dry grasses from the fields and weave them into small dolls, not for play, but for memory. You hide them in a jar near the hearth. Each one carries a name that was never spoken, a moment that was never grieved. You do not weep, but you remember. And remembering, in a city of graves, is its own quiet rebellion. They begin to call you Gorgon behind your back. It starts as a whisper, half jest, half warning, passed between the younger girls when they think you are out of earshot. They say it because you do not smile, because your voice slices like a blade when they are too slow at the well, because your eyes, when narrowed, seem to strip the flesh from pride. You hear them, of course you do, but you do not correct them. Let them believe it. Let them tremble a little. You've lived long enough to know that fear, when born of respect, is safer than affection. Affection fades, fear sharpens. Your hair is no longer cropped like a girl's, nor woven with bright ribbon. It is pulled back tightly, streaked with the grey of seasons endured. Your arms are still strong, your back still straight. You have grown into your body like a tree growing into a wind-worn cliff. Twisted, yes, but rooted deep. You do not speak unless the words matter. You do not waste effort on softness. And yet, you remember softness. You remember lullabies whispered into a newborn's ear. You remember laughter in the grass before you knew what grief tasted like. You remember your sister's voice before marriage stole it from her mouth. All of these memories live within you, not as ghosts, but as embers, quiet, glowing things beneath the armor of your silence. The younger girls do not know this. They only see what they are meant to see. They see you standing by the hearth, instructing them how to bind a wound, how to carry a jug without spilling, how to keep their voice steady when faced with insult. They see your hands correct theirs with firm precision. They see your shadow fall across the courtyard like a second gate. One day, a girl flinches when you enter the weaving hall. She drops her shuttle. It clatters to the floor. You pause, meet her eyes, and say, "If the loom scares you, Sparta will devour you whole." The others do not laugh, but later you hear them mutter again. "Gorgon," they say. Stone-hearted. You smile, just a little. They think you have forgotten what it feels like to be one of them. Tender, uncertain, always glancing sideways to gauge whether you are doing it all wrong. But you remember everything. And because you remember, you teach them the things no one else will. You teach them to answer insult with silence, but to never bow their heads. You teach them that a smile is not always kindness, and that the gods do not favor the beautiful. They favor the unyielding. You teach them how to pack herbs against their skin when they bleed too much. You teach them which chants are nonsense and which prayers are worth whispering when the pain will not stop. You teach them that a woman who outlives her husband, her daughter, her son, is not a tragedy. She is a fire that refused to die. They begin to listen more closely. The whispers fade. When one of them breaks her arm slipping on olive pits, it is you who sets the bone. You do it quickly, cleanly, without pity. She bites her lip, but does not cry. Later, as you bind the splint, she says in a shaky voice, "I thought you didn't care." You say nothing, but your hands linger on hers longer than they need to. That is enough. Another girl follows you home one evening. You pretend not to notice. She lingers by your courtyard gate, shifting her weight from foot to foot. Finally she asks, "Were you ever afraid?" You stop, turn, meet her gaze, and say always. She looks surprised, then relieved. You open the gate, and she follows. You make her tea. Bitter, strong, healing. You tell her of your first bleeding, of your first silence, of the day you delivered a stillborn daughter and had no name to bury. You speak not as a Gorgon, but as a woman with bones wrapped in scars and lungs full of breath that refuses to stop. She listens, and when she leaves, she walks taller. Not stronger, not yet, but taller. You are no longer just a warning. You are becoming something else. The name, Gorgon, does not vanish. It becomes something new. The girls begin to seek you out when they are unsure. They ask you questions they would not ask their mothers, not because they love you, but because they know you will not lie. You begin to laugh again. Not often. Your laughter sounds like thunder cracking open a drought. Sharp, sudden, a release of something long held in. And they remember it, because in Sparta, laughter is not joy. It is survival, wearing its teeth. He is 12 when they take him. Your son, the one you carried beneath your ribs, the one who stared at you without crying, the one whose heartbeat you learned before you heard your own again. He stands at the edge of the training grounds, with his tunic freshly dyed and his fists clenched. His legs are thin but wiry, his jaw already hardening like clay left in the sun. He does not look at you. He is not allowed to. The Agoge does not welcome mothers. You stand beside the others, the women with hollowed cheeks and upright spines, hands wrapped in cloth to keep them from trembling. No one speaks. This is not a farewell. This is an offering. A quiet sacrifice to the altar of Sparta. The boys are called forward, one by one. Each name snapped like a whip from the trainer's mouth. Each boy responds with the same sharp, "Yes, sir." Your son does not falter. He walks forward. You watch the swing of his arms, the way he plants his heels. The steadiness of him terrifies you. He is disappearing already. That night, your house is too quiet. Days pass. No messages come. Spartan boys in the Agoge are not permitted letters from home. They are not children. They are wood to be shaped into spears. Hunger is their teacher. Fear is their bedmate. Pain is their language. But one day, your neighbor's son sneaks a scrap of parchment home, tucked beneath his waistband. The ink is smeared, the edges torn. You do not know how he did it. You do not ask. The message is short, barely legible, but you know the handwriting. 3 words. Enough to keep your breath from breaking. When he is allowed home during the brief festivals, only once for a single night, you barely recognize him. His voice is lower, his eyes darker, his face thinner. He carries himself like a man who has already fought in shadows. He greets you with a bow, not an embrace. When you offer him water, he takes it with both hands, drinks without sound, sets the cup down carefully, like a soldier who expects interruption. You study his back as he eats. There is a scar near his left shoulder, long, pale, still healing. You do not ask where it came from. Instead, you place your hand gently over it. As he sits by the fire, he tenses at first, then breathes. You feel it beneath your palm, the small shudder of memory, of recognition. He does not stay long. Before dawn, he dresses again in the plain tunic of the Agoge and bows his head. "I'll return when I am called," he says. You nod. You say nothing. After he leaves, you burn the mat he slept on. Not out of anger, but because it smells of childhood. And childhood is gone. You begin to dream of spears, of fields soaked in dew that feels like blood, of your son's face behind a helmet. Expressionless, you wake gasping, though the room is cool, the air still. Your mother says it is the way of things. She tells you that her sons were the same, that all Spartan boys become ghosts before they become men. But your mother never speaks of their return, because most did not. You begin to prepare, not for his death, but for the knowledge that you will not recognize the boy who survives. You speak his name less often. You keep it folded inside you, like a letter never sent. You stop saying "my son" to the other women. You say "the boy," or "the one in training." They understand. Their sons are slipping away too. You start to walk more often, along the ridges, to the river, to the edge of the city where the stone gives way to scrub and wind. Sometimes you carry a reed flute he made for you when he was small. You do not play it. You only carry it. A weight in your pocket, a memory shaped into something fragile. You say nothing. You keep grinding grain. You keep stitching tunics. You keep waiting. When he returns again, older now, his jaw shadowed with stubble, his voice nearly unrecognizable, he bows again. But this time, he looks at you, just once, and in that single glance, You see it. The flicker. The boy. The child who ran barefoot across the courtyard, who whispered river songs in his sleep. It is gone in a moment. And that is enough. That night, as he sleeps beside the fire, you sing a single verse aloud, a song from his earliest days when your arms still cradled him like a secret. You do not think he hears, but when he rises before dawn, he leaves the flute behind, resting on the hearthstones. You only watch the embers and whisper the truth that no Spartan woman dares to say. You do not give birth to sons, you give birth to weapons. You first notice her when the morning light is still pale, and the courtyard smells of wet stone. She moves silently, sweeping the flagstones in long, steady arcs, the straw of her broom whispering against the dust. Her tunic is coarse, unbelted, the colour of old linen left too long in sun. Her skin is darkened by fieldwork, her hands red with cold. She does not look up. She does not speak. She is not supposed to. She is a helot, property, assigned, inherited. They linger. It unnerves you at first. This quiet defiance wrapped in stillness. She is no threat. She is small, younger than you, perhaps no older than your son. And yet, you sense the iron in her bones, not the kind forged on Spartan anvils, but the kind buried deep beneath years of silence, refusal, survival. One morning, the wind bites harder than usual. Your fingers numb as you grind grain. She is in the yard, sleeves rolled, pouring water from a clay jug into the trough. Her breath clouds the air. Her shoulders tremble, but she does not stop. You stare at the half-eaten fig on the table. Without thinking, you rise, cross the threshold, and press the fruit into her palm. She startles, but does not drop it. Her fingers close around it slowly. Her eyes lift to yours. No gratitude, no fear, just stillness. Then, a nod, barely visible. It is the first wordless conversation you've had in years that felt like truth. From that moment, something shifts. She begins to pause just a little longer after sweeping. Her glance is more frequent, though never lingering long enough to break custom. You do not speak, but the silence between you becomes something else. Not emptiness, but understanding. You start leaving a second bowl of lentils on the hearth in the mornings. Sometimes she eats it, sometimes she doesn't, but she always notices. You find yourself watching her more closely. The way she walks, her posture, the hidden bruises along her arms that she never explains. You do not ask. You would not answer such questions either. Sparta is built on silence. She knows this better than most. Once, you pass by her humming. It is not a melody, you know. Strange, low, rhythmic, like wind passing through hollow reeds. She stops when she sees you. You say nothing, but the sound clings to you like smoke. That night, you hum it to yourself beside the fire, slowly, quietly, as if it belonged to you. You begin to wonder, how many stories live inside her? What did she leave behind to stand here each day with ash on her palms and the weight of someone else's war on her shoulders? What did she lose that you never knew enough to miss? You've been taught not to wonder these things. A helot is not a person in Sparta. She is a function, a presence, a tool passed from hand to hand. And yet, her hands are just like yours, calloused, browned, cracked from labor. You start to remember things differently. You remember the time your son laughed as a child, and saw her flinch at the sound. You remember your husband barking a command before war, and saw her head lower, not from obedience, but from memory. You remember the night you sang alone, and thought you heard her echo the verse behind the door. One afternoon, you find her sitting on the edge of the well. She is not working. Her broom rests nearby, forgotten. She stares at her fingers. The sun hits her cheekbones, casting soft light over a face that has never been painted, never praised. You sit beside her without asking. She doesn't move. For a moment, there is no Sparta, no rank, no chains. Only two women, two breaths, two silences woven together like old thread. You do not speak, but your shoulder brushes hers, and she doesn't flinch. The next day she leaves early. A small offering, a strip of red cloth sits folded on the threshold. You do not see her place it. You do not ask why, but you keep it. You tuck it beneath your tunics, where no one else will find it. You never learn her name, but some part of you begins to carry her anyway. In thought, in song, in the way your hands now fold the cloth. with just a little more care. You are both women, but carved by different knives. And still, the blood stains the same. The sky is a dull bronze above the hills. As the horns sound across the city, long, low, mournful notes that stretch across the rooftops like the first shadows of dusk. It is festival day, the feast of Carnea. You rise before the dawn to prepare. Like every woman in Sparta, the bread must be baked, the goat slaughtered, the wine casks stirred. But this is no day of rest. Festivals in Sparta are not for celebration, but for spectacle, for showing strength, for masking grief with ritual. You wrap your hair into the ceremonial knot, tighter than usual. Your tunic is dyed in the deep red of fruit, bruised underfoot, not the war crimson of your son's cloak, but a darker hue, one that remembers. Around your waist, a belt woven with strands of vine and dried myrtle, symbols of both fertility and mourning. No one says it aloud, but all the women wear the same colors. All of them remember someone. In the square, the drums begin. Slow, measured, unrelenting. You join the other women in the outer ring of the dance, a circle of motion beneath a sun that feels more like fire than light. The dust kicks up in swirls. Your sandals scuff the earth with rhythmic certainty. The steps are old, inherited, each one passed down by women who no longer breathe. There is no joy in it, but there is purpose. Each stomp says, "We endure." Each turn, "We are still here." The younger girls laugh, twirling too quickly, their braids whipping like ropes behind them. You remember being one of them. Before the bleeding, before the marriage, before the silences grew heavier than the steps. Wine flows freely, thick and bitter. You sip, but not much. It is not meant to please. It is meant to steel the mouth against sorrow, to dye the lips so no one knows whether they've been kissed or bitten. The men chant nearby, lifting goat bones into the air, carved with sacred runes. They speak of victory, of death well died, of sons who do not flinch. One mother steps forward to offer a libation. Her eldest was taken in the last campaign. His shield returned without him. She pours wine into the dust and says the words, "He died well." You've heard those words too many times. And yet, they never stop cutting. You remember his face. He had played with your son once, trading stones behind the training grounds. You wonder if his mother hears him in her dreams. You wonder if she still sleeps. You move to the food tables, helping pass platters of barley cakes and roasted figs. The smells are rich, layered, but your stomach knots. Every scent is tied to memory. The honey reminds you of your daughter's skin, warm in the sun the day before she was born. The grilled goat brings back your husband's hands, steadying your shoulders at last year's feast. The final one before the notice came. You eat little. The widow beside you chews with her mouth closed, slowly, methodically, as if tasting were an act of resistance. She leans in. "They say the gods watch us closely on feast days," she whispers. "Not to see our devotion, but to see who still dares to feel." You do not answer, but you reach for the wine again. Later, the children perform their choral rites. Boys on one side, girls on the other, voices weaving across the open square like threads on a loom. Their songs are loud, full of blood and pride. But between the lines, you hear something else. You hear a girl falter. You hear a boy's voice crack. You hear the truth pressing against the verses, like a scream behind a veil. After the performance, you slip away, down the narrow path past the olive groves, where the air grows cooler and the cicadas louder. The ground here is uneven, the grass longer. You walk alone, but not truly alone. You carry them all with you. Your husband, who died without a final word. Your daughter, who never cried. Your son, whose name now echoes on the mouths of trainers like a weapon being sharpened. The Helot girl, who watches the world with eyes deeper than wells. And the you that once was, softer, untouched, still believing in a world that rewards kindness. You sit beneath the twisted olive tree at the ridge, and watch the sun descend into the arms of the hills. The sky blisters with red and gold. It looks like spilled wine, or blood, perhaps both. In the distance the singing continues, but you are done singing. Tonight, you listen to the silence, to the bones buried beneath the earth, to the gods who do not answer, to the woman inside you who still dares to feel. The knock comes just after dusk, when the last light is dying on the horizon, and the fire has not yet been fed. It is 3 short raps, Not urgent, not hesitant. You know the rhythm. You know the weight of it. Before you even reach the door, your hands begin to shake. Your son stands on the other side. Not a boy, not a ghost, but something between. He is taller than you remember, broader at the shoulders, the lines of his face carved deeper by wind, hunger, and orders barked in the dark. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. You open the door wider. He steps inside. The first thing you notice is the smell. Leather, ash, and blood. Dried, old, not his, perhaps, but still present. His cloak, once crimson, is darkened with stains that speak of rain and wounds. His sandals are split along the sides. His knuckles are bruised. There is a shallow scar along his cheekbone, healing crooked. You do not ask how it came to be. He sits at the hearth, without invitation. Not out of rudeness, but because he doesn't remember how to ask. You bring him water, setting it beside him. He lifts the cup, drinks, slowly, deliberately. His hands tremble, slightly. You pretend not to see it. When you bring the bread, he eats without speaking, chews slowly, swallows hard. Every motion speaks of control, of a boy who has been broken and rebuilt into something hard, angular, and quiet. You sit across from him. The fire begins to catch, shadows dancing along the wall. Finally, he looks at you. Not the way he used to, wide-eyed, full of questions, but with the caution of a man scanning the field for traps. His lips part, no words come. His mouth closes again, and then he exhales, a long, shuddering breath. You reach for a cloth and begin to wipe the grime from his face. He doesn't flinch, doesn't lean in. He just sits, eyes closed. When you reach the scar, your fingers hesitate. You touch it anyway, gently. Still, he says nothing. Later, you draw water and bathe him, as you once did when he was a child too small to walk. He kneels, head bowed, as you pour warm water over his hair. His shoulders are a battlefield, scars old and new, bruises layered like sediment. Your hands are slow, reverent. He does not cry, but his breath hitches once. You dry him with a cloth worn soft by years, the same one you wrapped him in after his first bath. You remember. You wonder if he does. Then he sits again, by the fire, watching the flames like he's forgotten what warmth means. You sit beside him, a hand's width away. I had a dream about the river, he says. His voice is hoarse, like it's not used to being gentle. You turn to him. You say nothing. He sleeps by the hearth that night. Not on a mat, not under blankets, just the cloak pulled around him, the edges stiff with old blood. You do not wake him, but you do watch as his fingers twitch in his sleep, as his breath catches, as he curls inward like he's bracing for a blow. In the morning he's already awake when you rise, but dry. He eats quickly, sparingly. Then he stands. I leave at sunset, he says. You nod. He walks to the doorway, stops, and without turning back says, I'll come back, if I can. You rise, walk to him. You do not embrace him. Instead, you place your hand on his back between his shoulder blades, the way your mother did, the way her mother did, and you say, if you die, let it be standing. He nods once, then steps out into the light. The door closes behind him. You turn back to the hearth. There, folded neatly, is his stained cloak. You begin to write again when the rains return. The first drops fall on the stone threshold like soft footfalls in the dark. Tentative, searching. You sit by the hearth, grinding dried lentils into flour, and watch the sky turn the color of old bruises. The air smells of wet clay and distant thunder. Your hands move out of habit, but your mind is elsewhere. You don't know where the army went. No one does. There are rumors, border skirmishes, a revolt among the helots, a fleet stranded in the Gulf. But rumors in Sparta are like smoke, always curling, never caught. You keep your hands busy, but your thoughts drift. So you begin to write. Not letters to anyone living, not prayers to gods who have long since stopped listening. You find an old wax tablet in the storage chest, its wooden frame chipped and soft with age. The stylus still fits your grip. You sit beside the fire and scratch the first line without knowing what will follow. I am tired. You pause. No one has ever asked if you were. You press harder with the stylus. The wax gives way like skin under a blade. I dream of him at the river. Still a boy, still laughing. I cannot remember the sound of his voice now, only the silence that followed it. You do not sign your name. That night you place the tablet beneath the hearthstones, hidden where the heat will not reach it. A few days later you write again. I remember when I first bled. My mother said nothing. I thought it meant I had failed. Now I know it meant I had entered a war I could never leave. You carve, slowly, deliberately, your knuckles stiff from the cold. No one sees. No one needs to. The act is enough. Sometimes your words are confessions. I feared the stillbirth more than the blood, because for a moment I was relieved. Other times they are questions cast into the dark. Will he come home with his hands clean? Will he come home at all? You do not show the tablets to anyone. You keep them in a cloth bag beneath the sleeping mat, wrapped in old linen that still smells faintly of rosemary and wood ash. You begin to measure time by them, not by seasons or festivals or the return of caravans from the coast, but by the space between your words. The gaps grow shorter, your entries longer. You write one entirely to yourself, not as you are, but as you were. Little one, it begins. You were so eager to be strong, you let the world carve you hollow, and still, you stood. You close that tablet with a single line. I am still standing. One evening, the Hellup girl sees you holding the stylus. She doesn't speak, but her eyes linger. You wonder what she would write if she had wax and time. You wonder what language she would choose, what memories she would pour into the silence. You think of offering her a blank tablet, but you don't. Some silences are not yours to touch. A month passes, still no word. You write anyway, sometimes in the dark, by the dying fire, sometimes at dawn, while the city still sleeps. Once you catch yourself writing while stirring porridge, the stylus in one hand, the spoon in the other. You laugh at the absurdity, softly, bitterly. That laugh stays with you all day. You write it down. I laughed today. It felt like betrayal. When the rain stops, the river swells. The fields bloom early. The girls begin practicing choral steps in the square again. Their feet slap the stones in unison, their voices rising, falling. You watch them from a distance. One of them stumbles. Another helps her up. You write that down too. Even here, some still read. You begin to realize the tablets are not just letters. They are maps of everything lost and everything endured. Of all the versions of yourself no one else saw, the girl who feared the dark, the wife who waited for a door that never opened, the mother who sang lullabies into the wind. You write to keep her from vanishing. And each night, as you place another tablet beneath the hearth, you feel the weight of silence shift. Lighter, not gone, but shared. You never intend for anyone to read them. But you know that someday, someone will. And perhaps when they do, they'll understand. In Sparta, women do not weep. They write. The girl was 13. She lived in the house across the narrow path, the one with the fig tree split down the middle, its trunk gnarled like the knuckles of an old woman. You'd seen her most mornings, fetching water from the well with a jug half her size, balancing it on her head with a concentration that made her brows furrow and her lips purse. Girl who laughed easily, who skipped when she thought no one was watching. She married a man twice her age. There was no celebration, just a quiet exchange at the gate, and a tunic dyed one shade darker than childhood. She moved in with her new husband by the time the figs turned ripe. Her old tunics gone from the line, her laughter absent from the path. You heard nothing of her until the moaning began. It was low at first, barely audible beneath the sound of sheep and wind, but by midnight it echoed from the stone walls like something ancient and animal. Her mother sat outside, hunched over, rocking slowly on a stool, a spindle limp in her lap. No one touched her. In Sparta, childbirth is not a sacred act. It is a test, one you pass by surviving. The next morning her husband walked down to the market. His tunic was clean. He bought olives. By midday, the girl's body was wrapped in a white cloth and carried through the street by two men with ash-smudged cheeks. No wailing, no drumbeat. The cloth was stained in the middle, soaked through with the red that proves a woman tried to create life and failed to survive it. You stood at your gate as they passed. The breeze lifted the edge of the cloth. You saw her fingers, still curled. No one followed the procession. No one sang. The mothers watched from their doorways. The daughters looked at their feet. You did too. The funeral pyre was lit before dusk. She had no name spoken over her. Just a handful of dust, a spill of wine into the earth, and the words every Spartan woman knows by heart. She did not die in vain. You said it. You said it because everyone else did. And then you went home and stirred the lentils until your arms ached. That night, you couldn't sleep. The fire hissed low, the coals sighing under their own weight. The silence pressed against your skin like cold cloth. You stepped outside, into the wind, barefoot. The ground was still warm from the day. You walked to the well, and there she was, the Helot girl, sitting on the edge, her back curved, her hands covering her face. She didn't look up when you approached, but her shoulders trembled, her breath hitched, not loud, not dramatic, just grief, released quietly, in the only place it was allowed to live. You didn't speak. You sat beside her, close enough for the silence to feel shared, but not broken. The moon was high and silver, the kind of moon that makes shadows stretch too long. An owl called from somewhere beyond the fig trees. The Helot girl removed her hands from her face. Her eyes were red, her cheeks wet. She wiped them with the hem of her tunic, then glanced sideways at you, just once, as if to ask, "Do you see this?" You met her gaze, and nodded, not in pity, not in shame, just in recognition. You did not speak of the girl who died. You didn't need to. That night, you returned home and opened the jar beneath your sleeping mat, the one with the wax tablets wrapped in linen. You etched a single line. She did not scream when they carried her away, but something in me did. The next morning, the well was quiet. The Helot girl swept the courtyard with her usual rhythm. Her eyes did not rise to meet yours, but when you laid a second piece of bread beside her bowl, she did not move it away. She let it be. That afternoon, the girls returned to their singing practice. The song they rehearsed was an old one, about glory, about conquest, about boys returning with shields, or upon them. But as they sang, one of the younger girls stumbled on the verse. She stopped, her voice cracked, and, for a heartbeat, the square fell silent. The instructor opened her mouth to scold her, but you stepped forward. You placed your hand gently on the girl's back. "Breathe," you said. She did, and began again. Later that evening, as you raked the ashes in the hearth, you found a small strip of linen, white, stained faintly pink, tucked into the corner of the stones. You did not know who placed it there, but you folded it carefully and laid it with your other letters. Another story written without ink, another funeral without weeping. Your hair has turned the color of frost, not all at once, but slowly, like candle smoke fading into morning. It began at the temples, then the crown. Now the strands that fall across your shoulders are streaked with silver, as if the years themselves had taken to whispering in your ear and marking their passage in strands of ash. You rise, earlier these days, not because duty calls you, but because the birdsong before sunrise feels softer, purer, less interrupted. You move, slowly now, not with hesitation, but with reverence. Each step a reminder that you are still here, still breathing in this city of marble and mud, of hymns and howls. You are no longer counted among the young wives, nor even among the middle ones. You are one of the watchers now, the older women who sit in doorways with weaving in their lap, who speak little but are listened to. They call you wise. You do not correct them. You know what you are. You are simply still alive. That, in Sparta, is enough to make you rare. You stand one morning by the edge of the training fields, where the young girls run their drills. Their tunics are short, their knees scraped, their voices loud. They remind you of yourself, not in likeness, but in hunger. Hunger to be seen, to be strong, to be impossible to break. One of them trips, her ankle twists. She gasps. The sound sharp as a snapped string. The others stop. They do not laugh. One girl helps her up. You watch from a distance. Later, the girl with the twisted ankle approaches your house. Her name is Sira. You've seen her often, fierce, fast, with a fire in her that could burn down silence. "Do the bones ever stop aching?" she asks without greeting. You smile, lips closed. "No," you say, but you grow used to the sound. She doesn't understand. Not yet. But she nods, as if she does. You invite her to sit beneath the olive tree outside your door. The same one you used to lean against when your son was small enough to carry. You offer her water, she declines. She sits anyway. Were you ever afraid? She asks. The question is sharp, not curious. Demanding. You consider? Yes, you answer. Always. She frowns. But you're strong. You pick up the spindle from your lap, twist the fibers slowly. Strength is not the absence of fear, you say. It is walking into the day while carrying it. She looks away. You let the silence stretch. And then, softly she says, I dream of dying in childbirth. Like lice, you pause. Then you place your hand, the one still steady, over hers. Dreams are not omens, you whisper. They are warnings. Listen to them, and live in spite of them. She doesn't speak again, but she stays a while longer. When she leaves, you return inside. You stand before the small mirror of polished bronze that hangs beside your bed. Your reflection is softer than it once was. The angles of your face worn down by years and salt and worry. You touch the skin beside your eyes. Trace the deep lines there. Once your husband called them maps of memory. You told him memory had no map, only weight. Your knees ache in the mornings. Your shoulders crack when you lift anything heavier than a bucket. Your hands no longer hold the spindle as tightly as they once did, but your breath is still even. Your vision still clear. Your voice, when needed, still cuts like river stone. You are not what you were, but you are. You step outside again. The sun has risen higher now, gilding the rooftops in a light too bright for sleep. You watch the dust rise from the feet of running girls. Hear the echo of chants. Smell the firewood smoke curling from kitchen flue. Sparta endures, and so do you. Later, at the market, you pass an elder even older than you, bent nearly double, dragging a cart of dried figs and olives. You nod to her. She does not see you, but you see the strength in her bent back, the dignity in her silence. You wonder who she once was, who still remembers her name. Back home, you take out the wax tablets. You write slowly, your hand cramping. But the words come easily. I am not young, you write. But I remember the hunger. I remember the ache of silence, and the weight of bearing children into a city that makes no promise of keeping them. You pause, then add, and still, I wrote. You do not cry. You have cried, in the past. Now, you write instead. And at night, you sleep. Not long, but deeply, as if your body, tired as it is, trusts that you have done enough. That survival, too, is a kind of offering. The first frost came early this year. It whispered in on a wind that rattled shutters and turned olive leaves silver overnight. You wake before dawn, wrapped in your wool, joints stiff, throat dry. The coals in the hearth are barely glowing, a faint orange breath beneath the weight of ash. You draw your cloak tighter and stir the embers back to life. It takes longer than it used to. Your fingers don't move as swiftly. The kindling doesn't catch on the first spark. You breathe into the hearth, gently, as if coaxing a sleeping child to wake. The flame flickers, coughs, then holds. You sit there for a long time listening to it crackle. A small song in a quiet house. Winter in Sparta is not a season of death, but of pause, of waiting, of watching the ground harden and the sky grow heavier. You've survived more than 60 winters, each one colder than the last in memory, if not in measure, each one adding a new line to your hands, a new hush to your voice. You think often of fire, of what you've burned to keep others warm, dreams you left behind. A name you once wanted to give your second child, a name no one ever spoke, because she never took breath. You think of words you never said aloud, letters never sent, the softness you buried before it could be seen as weakness. The fire remembers all of it. Its heat, constant, its appetite, endless, but ashes make soil, and soil feeds roots. You rise slowly and reach for a flat stone beside the hearth. Upon it, the marks of many meals, char, scratches, oil stains, layer like history. You press your palm to it. It's warm still, but fading, like everything. A soft knock startles you. When you open the door, it's Sira again. The girl from the fields. Her eyes are wide, her nose red from wind. She holds out a bundle, twigs, bark, dry sage. A gift, for the hearth, she says. You nod. Step aside. She kneels beside the fire without needing to be asked, feeding the flame with quiet reverence. The sage hisses, sending up a thread of sweet smoke. She watches the fire, not you. I had a dream, she says. You say nothing. I was standing in the river. The water was black. My hands were full of stones. You nod slowly. Do you know what it means? She asks. You look into the fire. It means you're carrying things too heavy to name. She doesn't speak again, but she stays. Later, after she's gone, you take one of the wax tablets, and there is no language for what a woman buries to keep others standing. Your stylus slips, carving deeper than intended. You leave the mark. You remember your own mother, now long gone, her thick braid, her cracked heels, the way she could silence a room with a single glance. You remember watching her tend the fire. She said nothing while she did it, but you always knew it mattered. The hearth is a quiet altar, not to gods, to memory. You sit back on your mat and watch the smoke curl into the beams. The house smells of sage, of dust, of yesterday's bread. The silence wraps itself around you like an old shawl. You do not mind the quiet. It is full of echoes. That evening, you walk to the edge of the village. The sky is soft with the first stars. The fields lie fallow, their furrows waiting. In the distance, girls sing a harvest hymn. Their voices are thin but unbroken. You pass the fig tree by the neighbor's gate. It bears no fruit this season, but its branches still stretch skyward, like arms that remember how to hold. Even after they've let go, you crouch down and place a stone at its base. No words, just presence. The moon is pale as bone when you return home. You feed the fire one last time. The flame answers, gently. As you settle onto your mat, you think, let this be enough. Let the warmth I leave behind be my offering. Let the ashes speak for me. The winter festival arrives with little warning. No procession, no trumpet, no call across the rooftops. Just a flickering of lanterns tied to beams, and the soft hush of bare feet sweeping dust from the square. It is the final festival of the year, when the moon hangs heavy and gold in the sky, and the breath of the women forms clouds between songs. You wake before dawn, not because you must, but because your body is older now, and sleep no longer lingers as it once did. You sit by the hearth, rubbing oil into your knees, listening to the stillness. Outside, the voices of women rise in rhythm, not loud, but steady, not triumphant, but alive. You wrap your shawl over your shoulders. The cloth is faded now, the color of old cedar bark. It was once your wedding wrap, too coarse to be beautiful, too strong to tear. You tie your hair back slowly, the way your mother taught you. With each pass of the comb, you remember her hands, her silence. Today, the dance is not for the men, not for the gods, not even for the city. It is for the mothers. You step out into the chilled air, where others already gather in the open square. There is no music yet, but the rhythm lives in the breath of the gathered women, in the tapping of bare heels against cold stone, in the whisper of wind weaving through olive branches. The younger ones take their place in the center, limbs long and certain. Around them, the middle-aged form a second ring, backs straighter than their burdens suggest. And on the outermost edge, women like you. You move slowly, but you move. Each footstep is a word, each turn a sentence. Together, the dance tells a story not in language, but in memory, of loss, of endurance, of life carried in hips and heartbreak. You are not graceful, but you are present. The cold bites your ankles, but you ignore it. The ache in your joints pulses with each step, but it's familiar now, like the sting of salt in a healing wound. Around you, the others sway and circle. Their eyes are half closed. Some sing under their breath, lullabies without children, songs without melody, hymns with no gods. You feel yourself remembering the first time you bled, the last time you laughed with your sister, the weight of your son in your arms, slippery and new, the silence of your second child, who never drew breath, the moment you knew you were alone, the moment you knew you would survive it. A girl beside you stumbles. Sira, her breath comes fast. Her eyes flick to yours. You nod. She nods back, and the rhythm continues. Later, the torches are lit. Their flames whip in the wind like wild tongues. The scent of rosemary smoke lingers in your braid. A hush falls over the gathering as the dance slows. You raise your hands, palms upward, not in offering but in declaration. I was here. I endured. I danced. The younger girls will forget your face someday. Your name will not be etched into stone. No son will carve your likeness. No priest will sing your deeds, but your footsteps will remain in the dust. And that is enough. As the dance ends, you step aside and find a place beneath the laurel tree near the edge of the square. Your breath clouds in the chill. Your heart beats slow and full. You feel your body, tired and aching, but still your own. Syrah approaches and sits beside you. Her cheeks are flushed, her braid loosened by motion. She doesn't speak, neither do you, but the silence is no longer empty. It is shared. It is earned. The stars above are sharp tonight, points of cold fire against the velvet dark. You tilt your head back and let them enter your eyes. You are not young. You are not soft, but you are here. And for one night, that is everything. She arrives just after the sun has burned away the morning frost. A girl not much older than Syrah, but fiercer in her silence. She stands in your doorway, feet planted firm in the red earth. A braid thick as rope trailing down her back. Her eyes are dark and restless, like storm clouds looking for mountains to break against. You know her by reputation. Not by the chores she's done, or the children she's helped raise, but by the questions she asks when she thinks no one is listening. The other women call her the girl with too much fire. You recognize it instantly, because you had it once. She doesn't greet you with ritual, doesn't bow her head or ask permission. She simply steps closer, close enough for you to feel the warmth of her defiance. I want to know the truth, she says. You raise your eyes from the spindle in your lap. Let the yarn fall still between your fingers. Which truth? You ask, voice low. She shrugs. All of them. You gesture for her to sit. She remains standing. I want to know why the helots lower their eyes, even when no one is watching. Why we pray for sons, but not for daughters. Why my mother tells me silence is strength, when I feel like it's killing me. There is no rage in her tone, only hunger. You lean back, your bones creaking like old doors. You have waited years for a girl like this to appear. One who doesn't flinch at the edges of the fire, but walks into it, daring it to change her. Instead of answering, you rise and cross the room to the stone box near the hearth. It takes effort to lift the lid. The smell of old wax and olive oil greets you like an old song. You remove the stack of tablets, etched by hand. Years of memory, quiet confessions, never spoken aloud. Dreams, regrets, names of those who never had the chance to be named. You set them in her lap. She blinks. These are yours? She asks. You nod. They are mine, but they are also yours. She traces one line with her finger, a curve, a break, a slash. The language of survival. Why did you write them? She whispers. You lower yourself beside her. To remember, to resist forgetting, to leave something behind that the wind couldn't scatter. She flips to the second tablet. Her eyes scan the lines. I never knew women wrote like this. Most don't, you say, or they burn it after. Why didn't you? You look toward the hearth. Because I knew someone like you would come. She does not smile, but her hands grip the tablets tighter. I want to ask more, she says. I know, but not yet. Good. She rises then, slipping the tablets into the fold of her tunic. Her braid swings as she turns, catching the light like a banner. At the door, she pauses. Did it cost you everything? She asks, not turning around. You don't answer right away. You watch the way the sunlight paints her shadow across the threshold. Then, softly, yes, but I would pay it again. She nods, a movement so small you almost miss it, and walks away. You sit there for a long time, staring at the place where she stood, and for the first time in years, something unfamiliar stirs in your chest. Not pride, not grief, something warmer. Hope? Later that night, as you prepare the fire, you think of her fingers tracing your words, her breath catching on the names of your dead, her eyes scanning the wounds you etched in wax. You wonder what she'll write when she runs out of your pages. You wonder what truths she'll discover on her own, because she will. She is not the kind of flame that flickers. She is the kind that spreads. And long after you are gone, long after your bones are dust beneath the floor of a home no one remembers you built, she will still be burning. The morning is soft, quieter than most, The crows have not begun their raucous chants, and the bread you pulled from the coals just before dawn still steams gently in its cloth. You sit by the hearth, as you have on so many mornings, and let the warmth cradle your palms. You are not sure why this morning feels different. There is no ache more than usual, no omen in the wind, no cracked cup or restless dream, but something in the air settles more gently over your shoulders, something in the stillness that feels like a held breath. The fire burns low, but steady. You fed it only a little this morning, enough to keep the chill from your bones, not enough to roar. Its embers glow like quiet heartbeats beneath the ash. You do not stoke it. Instead, the wax tablets rest where you left them. The girl with fire in her eyes hasn't returned them. You do not expect her to. That is how things should be. You gave them not as inheritance, but as invitation. The distant child's laughter floats in from the street, sharp and bright, like a stone skipping across a river. You smile, just slightly. The sound is clean, free of burden. For now, you rise and wrap your shawl around your shoulders. The fabric falls like dusk down your arms, its weight familiar, its scent faintly of sage and smoke. You take your time walking to the door. No rush. You've long since abandoned the need for haste. The air outside smells of crushed olives and morning dust. Someone is boiling lentils nearby. A dog scratches lazily at its ear near the gate. You nod to it. It does not look up. You sit on the low step and watch the sky change colors. Blue into gold, gold into something like memory. You remember watching your son train in that field across the way. You remember holding his hand before he could speak. You remember letting it go. You remember more than you forget. That is its own kind of grace. Across the way, two girls walk with baskets on their heads. One looks like your sister once did, the other like you, but only in the curve of her jaw, the way her eyes scan the ground for stones. You think of your mother. The last thing she said to you was not advice, not comfort, just your name. As if reminding you to carry it forward, you have, in silence, in labor, in endurance. You look back into your home, the worn walls, the woven mats, the clay vessels darkened from decades of use. You have never owned much. But what you touched deeply. The spindle in its basket, the hearth still warm, the lines in the stone floor from 100 walks between fire and door. You never asked to be remembered, only to have mattered, even quietly. You pick up a small stone from the ground, smooth, round, sun-warmed. You roll it between your fingers, then place it on the step beside you. A marker, a pause. You lean back against the wall and close your eyes. Your breathing is steady. The sun rests on your cheek. The wind shifts the edge of your shawl, and you listen to the footsteps of girls in training, to the rustle of laurel leaves above, to your own heart, still beating, steady and true. You do not know if this is your last morning. It is enough. You have given more than you ever took, and in the quiet firelight of your final days, you left behind warmth, but endured. As the last embers fade from this forgotten story, I hope it leaves a glow in your own heart. Thank you for walking with me through the dust and iron of ancient Sparta. Subscribe if you wish to return to other silent corners of history where forgotten lives still burn. What part of her journey stayed with you most? As the embers fade from this story, may the memory of these unseen lives linger gently in your chest. If this journey moved you, subscribe and return again to sit beside the silent hearths of history. Could you have borne the silence expected of a Spartan woman? What part of this story stayed with you the most? Do you believe endurance can be more powerful than glory?